Honestly, I can still picture Jason putting that engagement ring on my finger. His eyes were shining like the Montana stars, and he said, "Emily, you're going to be our family's designer from now on." Back then, I had no idea their family's troubles were way bigger than I imagined. When it came to planning the wedding, I never intended to hand it off to someone else. I'd been in the design world for 5 years, doing everything from apartment interiors to commercial spaces. There was no way I'd let my own wedding become some factory line product in someone else's hands. Jason always said, "Honey, don't overdo it," but he just didn't get it. A woman's obsession with her wedding is like a man's obsession with his tricked-out car. It's in our DNA. Our first full family meeting to discuss wedding details was at Jason's parents' old colonial-style house. Their living room walls were covered with 3 generations of law degrees, the frames so polished you could see your reflection. Every time I went there, it felt like walking into a small legal museum. Jason's mom, Martha, brought out cookies while Megan was already frowning at the venue photos I'd printed out. This converted warehouse space Emily picked, isn't it a bit too down-to-earth? She really emphasized down-to-earth, like it was some dirty word. Our family's weddings are usually at least country club level, aren't they? I was adding creamer to my coffee and my hand paused. Megan, that girl, hadn't given me a single nice look since the day Jason introduced me to her. She's 2 years younger than Jason and works as an assistant at the family law firm, always dressed in impeccable suits, looking at me like she was evaluating a flawed piece of evidence. "I've checked out the warehouse 3 times already," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "It has 26-foot ceilings. I plan to use mirrored installations for reflection, so at night, with the lights on, it'll feel like we're under a starry sky. Plus, it's downtown, so guest parking will be easy." Jason's dad, Richard, pushed up his glasses and tapped his fingers on the table. "Megan means the venue should match our family's social standing. Dad, Emily's a designer, she knows her stuff." Jason put his arm around my shoulder. "I think the place she picked is great." Martha smoothly intervened. "It's good for the kids to have their own ideas, but Megan said she knows a venue manager. Maybe we could compare a few more places." I scoffed internally. Compare? More like trying to swap it out completely. But I kept a smile on my face. Of course, no harm in looking at more. But I've already finalized most of the contract details with them and paid a $5,000 deposit. Megan suddenly smiled, her smugness barely hidden. "It's just a deposit. There's always a way to get it back." On the way home that day, Jason was still trying to console me. "Megan's just spoiled, she doesn't mean anything by it." He held my hand on the steering wheel, turning to look at me. I stared out at the streetlights flashing by, suddenly feeling a bit tired. "Jason, do you ever feel like your sister doesn't really like me?" "No way," he immediately denied. "She's just, well, a bit protective. She's worried someone might take advantage of me." "Take advantage?" I raised an eyebrow. "What have I taken advantage of? That my design projects have won awards? Or that my bank account has enough savings to pay for half the wedding?" Jason sighed and ruffled my hair. "Don't be so sensitive, babe. She just thinks you're not from our world." He wasn't wrong there. His family was a long line of lawyers. At dinner parties, they discussed new Supreme Court precedents. My parents own a coffee shop. Weekend family gatherings were about which coffee bean had the best roast. But so what? Love isn't a courtroom debate where you argue about matching backgrounds. The days that followed felt like a machine winding up. During the day, I rushed projects at the studio. At night, I'd go home and sort through florists on my computer. Jason was busy with a merger case, often working late into the night, and we saw less and less of each other. Megan, however, suddenly became helpful. "Emily, I found that champagne tower vendor you wanted," she texted me one day, along with an unfamiliar number. "They're 30% cheaper than the one you found before." I was suspicious. How did she know which vendor I'd looked for? I hadn't told her. I called them, and they said they'd only done 3 weddings and didn't even have a proper portfolio. Another time, my wedding dress designer suddenly called me, sounding very awkward. "Miss Emily, a lady claiming to be your future sister-in-law contacted us. She said she wanted to change your dress style to something, well, more conservative." I was in a meeting at the time, barely suppressing my anger. Ignore her. Stick to our original plan. After hanging up, my hands were shaking with rage. What was Megan trying to do? Turn my wedding into her preferred style? When Jason came home that night, I told him about it. He yawned as he took off his suit jacket. Megan just gets a bit too enthusiastic. She probably thinks you're too busy and wants to help you out. Help out? I raised my voice. She wants to turn my wedding into her showcase. All right, he walked over and hugged me, resting his chin on my head. Don't be angry, I'll talk to her tomorrow and tell her not to meddle. Be good, get some sleep. Look, you have dark circles. He smelled faintly of cedar aftershave, mixed with a subtle hint of perfume. I paused, wanting to ask if he'd met someone, but he'd already turned and headed to the bathroom. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Lately, everything felt off. What really made me suspicious was the venue contract. I distinctly remembered signing for a 2,000 square meter main space with an 800 square meter outdoor garden. But when Megan said she got a copy of the contract for me, I found it listed 1,500 square meters, and the garden had become a shared terrace. This isn't right, I told Megan, pointing to the clauses in the contract. I specifically confirmed a package with a private garden with the manager. Megan blinked innocently. No way? I saw him print it out myself. Maybe you misremembered? She leaned closer to me, her perfume a bit cloying. Emily, have you been too tired lately? My brother says you often stay up late. I stared into her eyes, where I caught a flicker of panic. I'll go confront the manager myself tomorrow. I put the contract into my folder, deliberately snapping it shut. Megan's smile froze for a second, then returned to normal. Okay, but don't argue with him, we still have to work with them, after all. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Moonlight streamed through a gap in the curtains, casting a long, narrow shadow on the floor, like a snake. I got up and went to my desk, opening my phone's memo app, the one I used specifically to record all of Megan's little tricks. March 12th, swapped out my chosen wedding favor vendor. March 18th, hinted in the bridesmaid group that my chosen dresses were too cheap. April 2nd, intentionally told Martha I didn't understand table etiquette. So there were already so many. I'd always thought I was overreacting, but now it looked like this was a premeditated sabotage. But why was she doing it? Just because I wasn't from a family of lawyers? Or was there another reason? The next day, I didn't go to the studio. I drove straight to the wedding venue. The manager, a chubby Latino man, greeted me warmly the moment he saw me. Miss Emily. I saw your venue setup plan, it's stunning. Mario, I placed the contract on his desk. I want to know why the contract details are different from what we discussed. Mario frowned, picking up the contract and examining it carefully. This isn't the one I signed. He turned and pulled another stack of papers from the filing cabinet. See, this is the one we finalized, 2,000 square meters plus a private garden. I compared the two contracts. The signatures were clearly different. My future sister-in-law came to pick up a copy of the contract yesterday. Mario suddenly understood. Oh, the lady in the gray suit. She said you sent her to pick it up and that she wanted to make some detail changes, so she asked me to reprint one. I thought you'd authorized it. I didn't authorize it. My voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anger. What else did she do? She asked a lot of questions about payment methods. Mario scratched his head. She also said she wanted to see how our surveillance system worked, saying she was worried about accidents on the wedding day. I thought it was a bit strange at the time, but she said she was your fiancé's sister, so I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Mario, could you do me a favor? Can I get a copy of this altered contract and the surveillance footage of Megan here? Of course, Mario nodded immediately. This is clearly fraud. I'll make a copy for you. Sitting in my car, looking at the surveillance footage on my phone of Megan pointing things out in the venue, I felt like something was stuck in my throat. Not only did she want to change my venue, but she was also scouting the surveillance system? This was no longer just simple mischief. I called Jason. It rang 5 times before he picked up, background noise clearly audible. Babe, what's up? I'm in a meeting. Jason, your sister changed our wedding contract. I tried to keep my voice steady. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds, then Jason's tired voice. She probably just wanted to help you. Never mind, don't be angry. I'll deal with it when I get home tonight. Deal with it? I raised my voice. She forged my authorization. This is fraud. Are you just going to let it go? Emily, she's my sister. Jason's voice rose too. Can't you be a bit more mature? Don't always make such a big deal out of these small things. Small things? I couldn't believe my ears. If this were at your law firm, would someone forging documents be a small thing? This is different, he roared. Family isn't a courtroom. Can you stop trying to apply your design blueprint standards to everyone? Then he hung up. Listening to the dial tone on my phone, a chill suddenly ran up from my feet. This was the first time Jason had spoken to me in that tone, and it was for Megan. I pulled over to the side of the road and looked at my reflection in the window. My eyes were a bit red, but I didn't want to cry. What good would crying do? If you draw a wrong line on a design blueprint, you can erase it and redraw. But if something's wrong with someone's heart, it's not that easy to fix. That afternoon, I didn't go home or back to the studio. I drove around the city in circles, finally stopping in front of my parents' coffee shop. Mom was wiping the glass, and when she saw my car, she smiled and waved. Dad peeked out from inside, holding a freshly baked cinnamon roll. What brings you here at this time? Mom brought me a hot cocoa. Are you exhausted? I bit into a cinnamon roll. The familiar sweetness melted in my mouth, and suddenly, tears streamed down my face. I poured out everything Megan had done and Jason's attitude. Dad listened silently for a long time, then said, Emily, remember, a good marriage is like a good design, the foundation must be solid. If it's crooked from the start, no amount of fancy decoration will help. Mom squeezed my hand. No matter what happens, we support you. If you feel wronged, you don't have to go through with this wedding. Our daughter won't have trouble finding a husband. Their words were like a warm stove, slowly dispelling the chill in my heart. Yes, I, Emily, am not some helpless plant. I don't need to cling to a crooked tree. When I got home, Jason was already waiting in the living room. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. Seeing me enter, he stood up. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have argued with you this afternoon. What are you going to do about Megan? I asked as I changed my shoes, not looking at him. I talked to her, he walked over, trying to hug me, but I dodged him. She said she just wanted to help, she didn't mean for it to go wrong. She'll go apologize to the venue manager tomorrow and get the contract changed back. That's it? I raised an eyebrow. She knows she was wrong, Jason sighed. Emily, please, I'm begging you, can we just let it go? The wedding is coming up, I don't want chaos at home. I looked at him and suddenly felt a bit alienated. This man, who could silence opposing lawyers in court, could only equivocate when faced with his sister's mistakes. Okay, I finally nodded. Just get the contract changed back. Jason visibly relaxed and hugged me tightly. I knew you were the most understanding. His stubble brushed my forehead, a little rough. I've already transferred the wedding fund to our joint account. Check it tomorrow to see if it's enough for the final venue payment. Okay. I leaned into his embrace, smelling that familiar cedar scent, but my heart wasn't as settled as before. That night, I lay in bed, looking at the sleeping Jason beside me, unable to sleep. My phone screen glowed, displaying the full surveillance footage Mario had sent me that afternoon. I zoomed in, watching Megan looking around the venue, and felt like her eyes were hiding something. Maybe I was overthinking, I told myself. After all, who would think there could be anything shady between their fiancé and his sister? I turned off my phone, closed my eyes, and tried to think of happy things, the lace trim on my wedding dress, the color of the bouquet, and my friends' surprised faces when they received their invitations. But somehow, Megan's fake smiling face kept replaying in my mind. It was like a premonition of a coming storm, an unsettling feeling in the air. Only, at the time, I didn't know this storm would be so fierce, tearing apart what I thought was my perfect wedding. The bridal shop I chose was on Fifth Avenue. It wasn't big, but it was famous. The designer was an Italian old man who had made wedding gowns for several Hollywood actresses. I took half a day off to try on dresses, and I brought Linda, my best friend from college and my designated maid of honor. Honestly, Emily, are you sure you want to bring Megan along? Linda asked, helping me adjust the train of my dress. Last time, in the fitting room, she made a snide comment about your skin being too dry. I almost didn't resist dumping setting powder on her head. I tugged at the lace on the bustier in the mirror. She's Jason's sister. We have to maintain appearances, after all. Besides, she offered to come with me to try on dresses. If I refuse, she'll probably say something about me to Jason. Just then, the glass door opened, and Megan walked in, clacking in 10-centimeter heels. Her Chanel suit clearly cost a fortune. She glanced at the wedding dress I was wearing, and her lips curled. Isn't this style a bit old-fashioned? I thought the designer would pick something more avant-garde. It's vintage satin, I said without turning, continuing to examine the details in the mirror. It drapes beautifully, and it's Italian hand embroidery. You wouldn't understand. Megan seemed not to hear me. She walked straight to the waiting area, sat down, and pulled out her phone to scroll. Linda gave me a look that clearly said, "See? I told you so." Sophia, the curly-haired owner of the bridal shop, walked over with a veil. "Darling, try this one. It's French lace and will go perfectly with your dress." I had just pinned my hair into the veil when Jason's call came through. "Babe, sorry, I have a sudden court hearing, so I might be late." His voice sounded rushed, with the clacking of a keyboard in the background. "You guys go ahead and try. I'll be there as soon as I'm done." "It's fine, you do your thing." I hung up, feeling a bit down. This was the third time this month he'd canceled because of work. Megan had somehow crept closer, pretending to help me steady the veil. My brother is just so dedicated, unlike some people who only think about clothes and accessories all day. "Clothes and accessories are work," I brushed her hand away. "At least I can support myself with it, instead of living off my parents." Megan's face instantly stiffened. She turned and huffily sat back on the sofa, burying her head in her phone again. Linda stifled a laugh next to me, mouthing, "Nicely done." Sophia led me to the rotating platform in the center of the bridal shop and adjusted the sweep of my skirt. "Turn around once. The beauty of this dress only shows when you move." I had only turned halfway when I caught a glimpse of Megan's phone screen lighting up in my peripheral vision. That wasn't unusual, but the WeChat profile picture that popped up was Jason's, the one I took of him last year on our Hawaiian vacation, laughing like an idiot in a floral shirt. My steps faltered. Not because the dress was heavy, but because my heart suddenly sank. Jason's WeChat profile picture? It was normal for Megan to chat with him, but the preview message that popped up on the screen. I squinted. It was a bit far to see clearly, but last night and hotel stood out. "What's wrong, Emily?" Sophia noticed I was off. "Are you not feeling well?" "Nothing," I forced myself to look away, but my fingers clenched the skirt, wrinkling the satin. "The train just seems a bit long, hard to walk in. Could you shorten it, please?" Sophia nodded immediately. "Of course. Take it off, and I'll have the tailor measure it." I went into the changing room, my heart pounding as if it would burst. Linda came in to help me with the zipper on the back. Seeing my pale face, she asked worriedly, "Why do you look so bad? Are you tired?" "Linda," I whispered, my fingers trembling. Megan was just chatting with Jason, and the preview message had last night and hotel. Linda's eyes widened instantly. "What? They were in a hotel last night?" "I don't know," I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "But it's definitely not right. Jason said he was in court, but Megan is here talking to him about a hotel." The moment the zipper was undone, I suddenly remembered I'd tossed my spare phone into my bag that morning. It was my old phone I used for design sketches, usually kept at the studio. Today, for some reason, I'd brought it. "Do me a favor," I quickly changed into my clothes. "Go out and talk to Megan, try to keep her busy, and ideally get her to put her phone on the table. Linda looked bewildered but nodded immediately. No problem, leave it to me. I set my spare phone to silent, clutching it in my hand as I walked out of the changing room. Sure enough, Linda was pulling Megan into a discussion about the latest TV series. Megan was engrossed, her phone casually placed on the nearby coffee table, screen up. I'm going to the restroom, I said, pretending to fix my hair, slowly moving towards the coffee table. The music in the bridal shop was loud, no one noticed my small actions. As I passed the coffee table, I pretended to trip on the rug, leaning forward, and my hand accidentally knocked Megan's phone off. Oh, sorry. I apologized, bending down to pick it up. In those 2 seconds of picking up the phone, I quickly pressed my spare phone against her screen twice. Megan's phone wasn't locked. The WeChat interface was still on her chat window with Jason. I didn't even have time to read the specific content, I just knew I had to get evidence first. Clumsy, Megan impatiently snatched her phone back. Can you be more careful? I just bought this phone. I'm so sorry, I said, looking down, not wanting her to see the fire in my eyes. Maybe these heels aren't quite right. Back in the restroom, I locked the door and opened the photos on my spare phone. Although they were a bit crooked, the text was perfectly clear. You were too rushed last night, you left your tie at my place. Followed by a red lip emoji. Don't send that. What if Emily sees it? Who cares? She's so stupid, even if she sees it, she won't figure it out. I've transferred part of the wedding fund to your card. We'll talk about the rest after the wedding. Bro, do you think we'll get caught? Don't worry. Once I marry her, everything will be easy. Scrolling down, there was another photo, a selfie of Jason and Megan in a hotel room. Jason was shirtless, and Megan was wearing his shirt, both smiling glaringly at the headboard. The hotel decor in the background looked familiar, like the Westin downtown, not far from Jason's law firm. My hands started trembling uncontrollably. My phone almost dropped to the floor. So those odd feelings weren't just my imagination, Jason's increasingly frequent late nights, Megan always appearing at our house, and the occasional scent of perfume on him that wasn't mine. All the pieces clicked together, revealing the dirtiest truth. Not only were they having an affair, but they were also colluding to transfer the wedding fund. Jason said that money was for the venue and catering. It had just been transferred to our joint account last month, and I hadn't had a chance to check the balance. Emily? Are you done yet? Linda knocked on the door from outside, her voice filled with concern. I took a deep breath and splashed cold water on my face. The woman in the mirror had a pale face, red eyes, but the look in them had changed, the initial panic and shock slowly settled into a cold calm. Be right there. I forced a smile at the mirror that was worse than a cry, then wiped away the moisture from my eyes. What was the use of crying? Crying for 2 scoundrels would be too easy for them. When I walked out of the restroom, Megan was waiting at the door, her face showing fake concern. Why do you look so bad? Are you not feeling well? Maybe we should skip trying on dresses today? It's nothing, I walked past her, straight to the sofa, and picked up my bag. I suddenly have an urgent matter. The wedding dress can wait. Sophia, please handle the alterations. Linda quickly followed. I'll take you back. Megan frowned. Aren't you waiting for Jason? He said he'd be here soon. No, I'm not. I pulled open the glass door, the sunlight glaring on my face. Who knows when he'll finish court? As I said the last few words, I deliberately looked back at Megan. Her face instantly turned very ugly, and her eyes darted away, refusing to meet mine. Sitting in Linda's car, I realized my hands were still shaking. Linda started the car and cursed, those bastards. I've always thought Megan looked at Jason strangely, but I never imagined they'd actually do something like this. Jason's a jerk too, you were so good to him. First, to the bank, I interrupted her, my voice so calm it surprised even myself. To the bank? Why? To check the account, I watched the streetlights flash by outside the window, already forming a plan in my mind. He transferred the wedding fund, didn't he? I want to see how much he transferred. Linda parked the car in front of the bank. I took a deep breath and walked in. When I took a number, my fingers hovered on the touchscreen for a long time before I correctly entered my card number. The few minutes waiting for my number to be called felt like a century. Ms. Emily White? The teller's voice pulled me back to reality. I handed her the joint account card. Please check the recent transaction history for me, especially large transfers. The teller clacked away at the keyboard for a few moments, then looked up at me with a strange expression. Ma'am, there was a $500,000 transfer from this account 3 days ago to an account named Megan Cole. $500,000. My mind buzzed. That was almost 2/3 of the wedding fund. Anything else? I tightened my grip on my bag. There was another $150,000 transferred yesterday. The recipient was also Megan Cole. The teller handed me the printed statement. These are the only large expenditures recently. I held that flimsy piece of paper, but it felt as heavy as a stone. The transaction records were clear, the transfers were made late at night, and the memo read wedding preparations. What a joke. Walking out of the bank, the sunlight stung my eyes. Linda rushed to meet me. Well? I handed her the statement without a word. She read it, then cursed, slamming her coffee cup into a trash can. Those bastards. They're absolutely scum. How could Jason do this to you? And Megan, she's his own sister. His own sister. Those 3 words felt like needles pricking my heart. I remembered the first time I went to Jason's house for dinner, Megan in a princess dress sitting on Jason's lap, both siblings laughing so happily. Back then, I thought they had such a good relationship. Now, it just felt disgusting. Should we go confront them now? Linda was shaking with anger. I shook my head, slowly walking to the car. No, not yet. Then what do you want to do? Linda looked at me, puzzled. Just let it go? Let it go? I looked at her, and suddenly I smiled, though the smile didn't reach my eyes. Linda, have you forgotten what I do? I'm a designer. My specialty is planning. They want to act? Then I'll give them the best stage and let them put on a show. I opened the car door and got in, my hands steady as I buckled my seatbelt. First, let's go to the bridal shop and pay the final balance. Then, help me contact Sarah and Lucy. Sarah was our bridesmaid team's video editor. She usually did post-production for a media company. Lucy was even more impressive. She was the technical director for the convention center downtown, completely knowledgeable about all the lighting, sound, and big screens. Linda paused, then suddenly understood. You want to. The wedding will go on as planned, I said, looking at the traffic light ahead. It turned green. And it will be magnificent, so all the guests can witness this perfect wedding. Only then, they didn't know that the main characters of this wedding were no longer them. Not long after the car started, my phone rang. It was Jason. I glanced at the caller ID, rejected the call directly, and then blacklisted his number. Linda beside me looked surprised. You're not going to let him explain? Explain? I sneered. Wait for him to finish making up lies? Right now, I just want to know how shameless they can be. My phone rang again. This time it was Megan. I rejected and blacklisted her too. The world instantly became quiet, with only the sound of the engine and the wind outside the window. Linda suddenly took my hand. Emily, whatever you want to do, I'm with you. And Sarah and Lucy, the 4 of us will definitely ruin their reputations. Looking at the determination in her eyes, a warm current suddenly mixed with the cold anger in my heart. Yes, I wasn't alone. I had the best friends, a supportive family. I didn't need to ruin my life for 2 pieces of trash. But that resentment, I couldn't swallow it. As the car passed the Westin Hotel, I specifically asked Linda to slow down. Looking at the glass-walled building, I could almost see Jason and Megan messing around inside. So disgusting. Oh, right, I suddenly remembered something. Help me check Megan's social media and her recent spending records. I have a feeling they're hiding more than this. Linda nodded immediately. Leave it to me. Sarah knows an FBI tech consultant. Checking these things is child's play. I leaned back in my seat, watching the fleeting streetscape outside the window. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on my face. What I once thought was happiness was like a colorful soap bubble, shattered by reality with a gentle touch, revealing the dirty truth inside. But it didn't matter. If it shattered, it shattered. I, Emily, was never a dependent vine that needed to cling to others to live. I had my own career, my own friends, and the courage to start anew. But this show, since it had begun, had to be ended by me. I wanted them to know that playing a designer for a fool came with a price. The car turned the corner, the bridal shop sign growing smaller in the distance. And I knew that from the moment I walked into that shop to try on dresses, the trajectory of my life, which I had carefully planned, had completely deviated. Only this time, I was no longer the one passively accepting. I would take control of the steering wheel myself, even if it meant driving off a cliff, dragging those two scumbags with me. When I called Sarah and Lucy to my studio, Linda had already filled them in on the whole story. Sarah slammed her mug onto the table, splashing coffee. Damn, are those two crazy? Siblings getting together and daring to touch your money? Lucy pushed up her glasses, her fingers flying across her tablet. I checked the Westin Hotel surveillance. They rent a room every Wednesday afternoon, which is exactly when Jason says he's meeting clients. She pulled up a screenshot. The image showed Jason with his arm around Megan's waist, entering the elevator, both laughing flirtatiously. They even kissed in the elevator car. The footage was a bit blurry, but anyone who knew them would recognize them instantly. Do you want me to pull the full video? Not yet, I pushed my design blueprints aside, clearing space for coffee cups. Right now, the most important thing is to keep them calm. The wedding is in 3 weeks, we need to string all the evidence together before then. Outside the studio's floor-to-ceiling window, the Manhattan skyline spread out, the sunset painting the clouds orange. It looked beautiful, but I felt nothing. I used to think that after the wedding, Jason and I would move to the suburbs of New Jersey. Now, I'm glad we didn't sign the purchase agreement. Linda slapped the newly printed bank statement on the table. This is just the joint account. I suspect Jason has private accounts too. Sarah, can you check his personal accounts? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Do you think I'm a god? But I can try. My cousin works at the IRS. Getting account statements is doable, it'll just take some time. How long? I asked. A week at most. Sarah gave me an okay sign. But you have to promise me you'll let me edit these videos into the best family drama of the year. I guarantee those two will go viral. Lucy suddenly spoke. Don't worry about the technical side. I'm in charge of setting up the big screen and sound system at the wedding. Whatever you want to show, and when, is up to me. She pushed up her glasses, her eyes behind the lenses gleaming with a fierce intensity. I can even turn the lights red to match the atmosphere. I couldn't help but smile. These were my bridesmaids. They seemed harmless normally, but when it came down to it, they were tougher than anyone. Oh, right, Linda suddenly remembered. Didn't Megan always want to be the chief bridesmaid? You said before that she had ulterior motives and didn't agree. Now she can. I took a sip of my coffee. The hot latte scalded my tongue but made me clear-headed. Not only will she be the chief bridesmaid, but she'll also think I don't suspect a thing. Sarah whistled. All right, Emily, playing hard to get. Imagine her standing on stage in her bridesmaid's dress, watching her dirty laundry being aired. Just thinking about it feels good. The four of us sat around the table for 3 hours, going over every detail of the plan. From how to keep Jason and Megan calm, to how to gather more evidence, to the technical procedures on the wedding day, we even anticipated possible reactions from the guests. I have another idea, Lucy suddenly tapped the table. Isn't there an interactive segment at the wedding? We can let guests scan a QR code to leave messages and send blessings. Then we can turn those messages into real-time bullet comments on the screen. It'll definitely double the effect. That's great! Linda clapped her hands. Let everyone see what kind of people those two are in everyone's eyes. It was late at night when we left the studio. The streets were mostly empty, with only streetlights illuminating the deserted sidewalks. Linda drove me home. Rock music from our college days played in the car, keeping the mood high, but watching the streetscape flash by outside the window, I suddenly felt a little tired. Maybe. Linda hesitated. Let's just drop it. This kind of scene is too ugly. What if you can't control your emotions? I turned to look at her. The streetlight flickered on her face. Linda, this isn't about saving face. They cheated me first, with love, then with money, and now they want to turn my wedding into their scam. If I just let it go, I'll never be able to live with myself. The car stopped downstairs at my apartment. I unbuckled my seatbelt. And I need to show Jason's self-important relatives what kind of people their cherished son and daughter really are. The next morning, I proactively texted Megan, asking if she wanted to grab coffee to discuss bridesmaid dresses. She replied instantly, saying I'm free, her smugness practically oozing from the text. We met at a cafe next to Central Park. When I arrived, she was already sitting by the window, a cappuccino untouched in front of her. Seeing me enter, she immediately stood up and gave me a fake hug. Emily, I'm so glad you came around. I've always said we should be like sisters. I sat across from her, scoffing internally. Sisters? Who would be sisters with someone like you? I was too sensitive before. I deliberately lowered my stance, stirring my latte. I always thought you had an issue with me, but it was all a misunderstanding. Linda and the others all said you're the most suitable chief bridesmaid, since you're Jason's closest relative. Megan's eyes lit up. She took a sip of her coffee. Actually, I was just looking out for you. Our family has a lot of relatives and rules. With me watching out for you, nothing will go wrong. Thank you so much. I took out the bridesmaid dress design from my bag. This is my initial idea. See if you like it. Royal blue satin should suit your skin tone well. Megan took the sketch, her fingers tracing the lines, a smile she couldn't hide spreading across her face. Not bad taste, better than the wedding dress you chose. So if you have no objections, I'll go with this? I pretended not to hear the sarcasm in her voice. No objections, she handed the sketch back to me. By the way, did my brother talk to you about the wedding fund? He's a bit short on cash lately, so he borrowed some, but he'll pay it back eventually. Here it comes. I sneered inwardly, she actually dared to bring it up. He did. I lowered my head to drink my coffee, hiding the disgust in my eyes. He explained it to me, said there was an issue with the law firm. I understand. We're family, so there's no rush about the money. Megan visibly relaxed and started talking about the wedding day schedule, saying she wanted to oversee it to ensure every detail met the Cole family standards. I listened and nodded, mentally translating her words into, I want to make sure I get enough screen time. When we left the cafe, she enthusiastically hugged me. Her perfume was so strong it almost made me choke. Emily, I knew we'd become good sisters. Yeah, me too. I smiled and waved goodbye to her. The moment I turned, the smile on my face dropped. Back home, I took the voice recorder out of my bag. At the cafe, I had deliberately placed it in my bag, recording Megan admitting that Jason had misappropriated the wedding fund. Now, I had another piece of evidence. The following days were incredibly busy. I threw all my energy into the new hotel design project I'd taken on, spending every day immersed in construction sites and blueprints, so exhausted that I'd fall asleep the moment I hit the bed. Jason called a few times, but I never picked up. Later, he started emailing, from initial apologies to later threats of suing me for invasion of privacy. Let him sue, Sarah sneered while helping me organize the evidence. The recordings and transaction records we have are enough to put him behind bars for good. Eventually, he probably realized it was useless and never contacted me again. Martha, however, suddenly appeared downstairs at my studio one day. Her hair had turned much grayer, and her back was stooped. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. Emily, her voice was hoarse. Please, I beg you, don't pursue this any further. Richard is still in the hospital, and Jason lost his job. Our family is all ready. Mrs. Cole, I interrupted her. When you condoned Megan altering my contract and watched Jason transfer the wedding fund, why didn't you consider showing mercy? Her face instantly flushed red. She opened her mouth but said nothing, finally wiping away tears as she left. Watching her retreating figure, I felt no satisfaction, only a sense of pathos. 3 months later, my hotel design project was successfully completed. The celebration party was held in the newly opened rooftop bar, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city's night view. Linda and the others insisted on setting me up with someone, saying he was an architect they knew who was very reliable. No, I waved them off. I just want to focus on my career right now. Just go meet him, Lucy pushed me into the crowd. Think of it as networking. I stumbled from their push and bumped into a solid chest. Careful. A low male voice spoke above my head. I looked up and met a pair of smiling brown eyes. The man was wearing a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, revealing well-defined arm muscles. Sorry, I quickly straightened up, my cheeks feeling warm. No problem, he smiled, showing 2 small canines. I'm Alex. I heard the lead designer for this project is amazing, so I came to learn a thing or two. Later, I found out he was the architect Linda and the others had mentioned. We chatted easily, from deconstructionism to postmodernism, from new New York landmarks to old Tokyo buildings. Before I knew it, we had talked late into the night. When the celebration ended, Alex walked me home. As we reached my building, he suddenly said, "Actually, I've known about you for a while. I read that article you published in a design magazine last year about old building renovations 3 times. I paused, then smiled. It turns out fate is truly amazing. It doesn't follow your plans, but it always gives you an unexpected surprise when you least expect it. That night, I stood on my balcony, looking at the distant city lights, and suddenly felt a profound sense of peace. The Cole family drama was long gone. Jason was reportedly in California and never came back. Megan was kicked out by her family and was supposedly not doing well in Miami. And I lost a fake wedding but won back my own life. I had a career I loved, true friends, and the courage to love again. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Alex. Free tomorrow? I'd like to invite you to a new exhibition. I smiled and replied, sounds good. Putting down my phone, I took a deep breath. The night breeze carried a hint of floral scent, feeling pleasant on my face. Life, it turned out, was never black and white. While losing something, you were quietly gaining something else. Just like that absurd wedding, it burned away false prosperity but showed me what was truly worth cherishing. The future is long, who knows what I'll encounter. But I know that no matter what, I have the courage to face it. After all, what can someone who can personally destroy a farce not do?